And today we're going to explore the topic of time management, but not in the way you think. Most leaders feel that they're sprinting a marathon. There's this ongoing tension between the leader of the team or the business who wants more completed than what their team feels they can achieve. That stuff kind of helps a little bit, but doesn't move the needle. So therefore, time management is a lot about energy management, and we either manage our energy or our energy manages us. Now let me introduce you to the energy value matrix. Horizontal axis is how much energy the task gives you, and the vertical axis is how valuable the task is as it relates to your job. So the top right corner is high value and gives you energy. The bottom left is low value and saps your energy. Now the action with the first principle is to match the task to your energy levels and schedule in tasks you don't enjoy in this hour. Leadership doesn't grow by accident. It grows because you choose to work on it. Welcome to Lead to Grow, the podcast that decodes how human success drives business performance with the people principle. I'm your host, Tommy Sim, and today we're going to explore the topic of time management, but not in a way that you think. We're going to show you why most leaders get the approach to time management wrong and what you can do differently. Now, you've got loads of time, right? Of course not. Most leaders feel like they're sprinting a marathon. What's worse is that your team often tells you that they don't have enough time to complete the tasks you want from them. There's this ongoing tension between the leader of the team or business who wants more completed than what their team feels they can achieve. The result, tension mounts, and no one is truly happy with the situation. Now, I know what you're thinking. I've been on time management courses before. That stuff helps a little, but it doesn't move the needle. But what if I told you that most leaders and their teams view time management in the entirely wrong way? In fact, they're not even managing the right variable. That's why in today's episode of Lead to Grow, I'm going to present you with what might be a completely new way for you to view time management. We're going to identify where your time is being lost, what you can do to get it back. And importantly, if you build your skills and knowledge in this way of thinking and working, you might just be able to remove the tension and get what you need. If you're struggling to find enough hours in the day and your team is too, then this is an episode that you will want to prioritize. Before we get into it, I need to let you know that today's episode will explain to you the core topic as it relates to time management. This will be an introduction, as there are many other aspects that we can and will delve into in other episodes that relate to being more productive. Specific items such as meetings, emails, and other task-based time savers won't be covered in depth today. And the reason for this is if you don't get the core concept I'm trying to convey in this episode, the approach to the other time management techniques won't work nearly as effectively. So stay tuned to get the foundations, as this will give you a significantly better chance of applying the right techniques later on. Let's start with a question. Are you a time waster? Yes or no? Hands up for yes. Okay, hands up for no. Well, for those who said no, I hate to tell you, but you are. It's just a matter of the amount of time, when, why, and how. And yes, I'm a time waster too, so don't worry. When we're talking about time wasting, we're not talking about your doom scrolling. We're talking about when you're wasting time and you're not aware, and you're kidding yourself and others. By the way, most people admit to being time wasters. Those who said no to that question are often the type to be highly organized and complete a high volume of tasks, but you're still a time waster. And you'll find out very shortly. Now, I want to discuss negative language. Have you ever said or heard the words, "I didn't have time," when a task wasn't completed when it was meant to? Of course you have. We've all said it once and heard it from others. How about "I didn't get the chance to do it"? I was just waiting around and the chance just never showed up. I don't know what happened. What about "I had X that I needed to get done first"? Now, maybe that was true. We couldn't complete Y unless X was done first. But very often people say this when there's two separate tasks that actually aren't sequential at all. I once had someone say, what if there is literally no time? Like that word literally is used for emphasis these days. I won't talk about which generation, but it is more commonplace. Now, if there's literally no time, then time doesn't actually exist as a construct, right? Now, that's not a rabbit hole we're going to go down today, thankfully, but you know what I mean. The point is that if we're saying these things, we're being managed by our time and energy rather than us being in charge. And the result is that people have those days where it's like, I don't know what happened today. I was so busy. I didn't get any of the things done that I was set out to. I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's a problem. Now, I'm going to introduce a core concept that, if you can grasp this fully and wholeheartedly, is going to set you up for a significantly greater level of control over your day. So let's get into it. So we have time, which is a variable. Now, out of you and me, who has more time today? If you answered that we have the same amount of time, you'd be right, because we do. Now, there's a task that takes a few hours, 20 minutes in that kind of range. So therefore, there's enough time for that to be done today. Now, you and I had the same amount of time. We had 24 hours, or if we look at a work day, we had 8 hours. So there was the time to complete the task. Now, there's another variable, which is energy. Now, who has more energy today out of you and me? It's going to be one of us, right? It's not going to be exactly the same. We have different levels of energy between different people, different levels of energy on different days, and importantly, different times of the day. For a lot of us, our best energy is first thing in the morning and our worst energy is at 3 p.m. But that's not the same for everybody. But what is the same is that it varies throughout the day. Some have less energy after eating, some have less energy when they're hungry. We have different levels of energy for different tasks. Some people love spreadsheets, others love walking into a room full of people they don't know. We have different levels of energy for different people. Some people you have a small amount of energy for, whilst others give you loads of energy back. Have you ever had someone tell you that they only have 20 minutes to meet, and then you get to the 20-minute mark and you ask them, do you need to go? And they say, nah, that's okay. In that situation, the energy that they thought they had for the meeting was less than what they really had, so they have more energy to give you. So then, how does energy impact our time? Well, there are tasks that we enjoy that give us energy, and there are tasks that we don't enjoy that sap our energy. And our energy and emotions have a significant impact on what we choose to work on. So therefore, time management is a lot about energy management. And we either manage our energy or our energy manages us. Now, let me introduce you to the Energy Value Matrix, or EV Matrix for short. I've explained this to hundreds of leaders and thousands of people, and this is the part that resonates the most in a lot of cases. And it's the foundation of the time management approach that I like to convey. So take a sip of the coffee that you have, if you can do so safely, and let's get into it. The EV matrix is a 2x2 matrix whereby the horizontal axis is how much energy the task gives you, and the vertical axis is how valuable the task is as it relates to your job. So the top right corner is high value and gives you energy. The bottom left is low value and saps your energy. So the tasks at the top of the matrix are higher value, and this will depend on your position. The tasks at the bottom are lower value, and again will depend on your position. The tasks towards the right will give you energy. They don't require much energy. They energize you. And the tasks on the left, they sap your energy. Therefore, you need more energy to complete them. We're going to label these quadrants based on different animals. And I'm going to use an example of a somewhat stereotypical sales manager to illustrate how it works. It's important to note that stereotypical means that if you're a sales manager, what I explain may not apply to you specifically. It's just an example. The first quadrant in the top left, we're going to call frogs. That's high value for your role, but the task saps your energy. Now, for this quadrant, I borrowed this term that was originally said by Mark Twain and later made famous by Brian Tracy. The thought was that if you had to eat a frog, do so in the morning. So the worst thing you had to do was over with. Although in some cultures, eating a frog is enjoyable, let's say for the purpose of this model that it's actually not your favorite thing to eat. Now, we're going to add an additional dimension to this in that a frog is not only a task that saps your energy, but it's high value according to your role. So in this sales manager example that I'm going to use, let's say that sales manager is in B2B, business-to-business sales, and is responsible for reviewing and signing off multi-million-dollar contracts that bind the company to terms with clients. Pretty important stuff. However, this sales manager doesn't like reading long and detailed documents, so it saps their energy. Therefore, because it is high value for their position and saps their energy, it's a frog. Now, it's important to note that it doesn't mean this sales manager is not good at reading long documents. Although if someone is not good at something, it increases the chance that it saps their energy or requires a lot of energy. Some people, though, can be good at something, but they just don't enjoy it. Apparently, this was the case with the tennis player Andre Agassi. If we stay on the left-hand side and work our way down, we get to the bottom left-hand corner, and we're going to call these monkeys, which are low value and sap your energy. This is based on the phrase to have a monkey on your back, as in it's something that you kind of want to get rid of but seems to be there for some reason. In our sales manager example, a task that could sit there are expense claims. These are the receipts from all the business expenses that can take place through taking clients to lunch, traveling for business, and other business-related activities. They need to record the receipts and note what the expense was for and the type of expense. For this particular sales manager, again remembering that it's not for all sales manager, this particular one, they don't enjoy this detailed administrative task. Also, this task is not going to help their team achieve the sales results and other key outcomes. However, they still need to do it, and it can cause problems if they don't get it done. So this is the task that is prone to procrastination, even though it probably doesn't take much time at all. The energy, however. Now let's stay at the bottom of the EV matrix, but move over to the bottom right-hand corner. Here we have what looks like a cute and cuddly creature, but it's actually the most dangerous one of them all, the sloth. Now the sloth is low value according to your position, but gives you energy. That is, it doesn't require much energy from you. You really enjoy this task. It's that guilty pleasure. When I said at the start, everyone's a time waster, this is the place where the majority of time is wasted, and we're often not self-aware at the time that we're doing it. You'll have no doubt seen this before in others, when they look like they're doing a lot of busy work that's easy, but avoiding what is considered to be harder, for them that is. What one person finds hard or draining might be easy or energizing for another person. Finally, let's stay on the right-hand side of the EV matrix and work our way up to the top right-hand corner. Now, these are the tasks that give us energy and are high value. We're going to call them puppies. Hopefully your job is full of these types of tasks, because then chances are you'll enjoy your job. If your position has very few puppies, you're likely to feel drained every day. For our sales manager, we're going to say that this is coaching their sales team on sales skills. And for this particular sales manager, they enjoy doing it, and it's high value because it helps their team to achieve their sales results and other key outcomes. Hopefully it's starting to click for you now, and you may be thinking about your own job and which of your tasks fit within each quadrant. Now, there are a few important things to know about the energy value matrix. So first of all, everyone's position can have their task placed into one of the quadrants. Also, a lot of performance issues relate to a person spending not enough time on the top half and too much time in the bottom half. A lot of burnout issues are a result of people spending too much time on the left-hand side compared to the right. If your role definition and the person you hire results in a lot of the tasks falling in the puppy quadrant, remembering whether it's a frog or puppy depends on the person, you're giving both of you a better chance of success. And tasks can move between the different boxes as well. How does that happen? Well, let's take a look. A frog can become a puppy if the reason that it's a frog is because the person is not good at it yet. So if they work on becoming better at it, then they might start enjoying it more. Think about particular conversations people need to have, whether that's with staff, clients, suppliers, or anyone else. Not being effective at those conversations often results in a bad experience, and so sometimes people avoid those experiences. Whereas being effective at it, it's more likely to be a better experience and outcome, making it potentially more enjoyable and fulfilling. A task can move from being a puppy to a sloth. So how does that happen? Let's look at the classic example, which is the meeting that was scheduled for an hour. We completed the meeting within the first 20 minutes, but because we like the sound of our own voices, we decided to have the meeting again, another 2 times, to take up the full hour that was allocated. Now, let's not pick on the extroverts though. Let's look at the spreadsheet boffins, because there was some analysis that needed to take place. It took 45 minutes, but 2 hours later was swimming through the data, finding all sorts of insights that are not really that valuable. It's a great way to procrastinate, to avoid, say, making that awkward phone call that's on the to-do list. A puppy becomes a sloth because we overspent time on a task that we enjoy, that was valuable to begin with, but now is no longer valuable time spent. Another movement of a task between quadrants is that a frog or puppy can become a monkey or a sloth, respectively, when someone's position changes or when priorities shift. A typical example is when someone goes from being an individual contributor to a people leader. The mistake that a lot of people make when doing so is to keep doing what they've always done, but now they have direct reports. So essentially they're operating as a senior officer rather than being a people leader. And for a lot of new leaders, it's easier just to work really, really hard and solve everyone else's problems because it takes less energy than it does to coach them and to achieve success through others. This is a common thing that happens, and the result is that the new leader becomes burnt out. Their team is not developing, and they're not achieving their potential. And this is commonly the worst for business owners who are founders, because they often know how to do everyone's job, and no one is coaching them on how to be a good leader of people. How else can a task move between quadrants? A monkey can become a frog if it's a small task that turns into a big issue because it was ignored or not done properly. There are other transitions that exist as well. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment on the ones that I haven't mentioned. One thing I hear a lot with the EV matrix is that a good chunk of people feel they are spending a lot of time in the monkey's corner. They say they are not spending time on sloths at all, and they feel drained because of it. They also say that there are tasks that are in the puppy corner, such as strategic planning, that they would feel energizing, and they're not spending time on that as well. So how can this be? It's important to know that it's all relative, and this is where your self-awareness will really be tested. I'll give you an example. You know the person who says that they're really busy and everyone's always after them? They often express frustration about being busy, and they're spending zero time and effort on changing the situation. I'm not making a statement to judge them. In fact, I think it's important to try and empathize with how they're feeling if you're truly going to help them make a change. The reason I talk about this is it takes less energy for this person to keep things how they are, and it takes more energy to fundamentally shift their situation to a less chaotic one. Furthermore, the feeling of being wanted and needed is often a good one. So when you gain that reaffirmation that you're the highly knowledgeable person on this regular basis because people keep asking questions that you have the answers for, it feels really good. And it validates our identity as an important person who knows a lot. So to take an action that is not within the person's current comfort zone that would seek to remove this feeling, well, why would they do that? It makes logical sense for the business and their overall productivity to make this shift. But if it removes the fulfillment of an emotional need for this person, then they're going to be reluctant to do it. How can this problem be solved? Well, each situation is different, of course, so it depends. Defining what people are going towards and helping them view their next identity can help with these types of things. Allowing them to feel part of the change and start exploring an enhanced set of tasks that makes them feel even more valuable can also enable the right shift. But it takes patience and real effort to be achieved, and it won't work with everybody. Let's keep moving. Now that you know about the EV matrix, what can you practically do with this knowledge? Now, the EV matrix is a central concept to one of my 7 principles of time management. You may notice that we're well into the second half of this episode, so I won't be able to properly cover all the 7 principles this time around. But what I will do is give you some actions you can take away with this first principle. So this principle is that energy and what we enjoy drives what we spend time on. Each of the 7 principles has an action associated with it, as does this one. Now, the action with the first principle is to match the task to your energy levels. To do this, you need to be honest with yourself on the tasks that you don't enjoy. So frogs, puppies, are they monkeys or sloths? And if you say you like everything equally, it's kind of maybe not real. And I bet those who observe you might beg to differ. So draw out the 2x2 matrix and write down which tasks fall into which quadrant according to your job. With what you consider high versus low value, it's important to test this with someone who would know. Now, the obvious choice is your own manager, or perhaps the best performer in your team can be a good source. Personality profiles can be great in helping to identify additional insight into the tasks you enjoy and the tasks you don't. But you may already have a good idea yourself. Once you've identified where each task sits, have a method for how you deal with the tasks you don't enjoy. Now, one simple but effective method is to use the hour of power and schedule in tasks you don't enjoy in this hour. Now, the hour of power is the hour of the day where you have your best energy. For many people, this is first thing in the morning. Others may say it's later in the day. For those people, there is a benefit to try and shift this if you can. So for the sake of this technique, let's say it's the first hour of your workday. Many people waste this best energy on sloths. For instance, people who like completing small tasks that don't require sustained concentration enjoy this start to the day. They have this task though that was on their list that they wanted to get done, and then they get to 3 p.m. and they're thinking, I'm tired, and they're thinking about other tasks that come up through the day, and they push this more difficult task to the next day and so on. Let me demonstrate something for you. Now, this glass of water represents your brain at the start of the day. It's clear you've had a sleep. Now, as things start to come onto your plate, as you go to meetings, as tasks come onto your list, this is what starts to happen with your mind, right? And all the tasks, they go in, and by the time it gets to sort of middle of the afternoon, towards the end of the day, this is what's happening. The flake, and for those who are listening, I'm crushing a flake into a glass of water and it's clouding it. And so by the time you get to that point in the middle of the day and you think, should I spend time on that task? You're making decisions as to which other bit to pick out. Your mind is blurred. And so if you can have your hour of power at the start of the day, it can be a more effective thing. So if you schedule that more difficult task in your hour of power, let's say that is from 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. or whatever time that is for you. And if that task should take about an hour, or if you've got 2 tasks that has half an hour each, you're more likely to get it done. Now, what happens is that the time pressure that you place on yourself makes you work at a good pace because you've got a specific goal to get it done during a finite time. Even better if you can make a short start when you schedule it by noting a few steps that you need to take, and this allows you to hit the ground running. For the hour of power to work, you need to set yourself up for success. Now first, where are you going to work? If you're working out where people can interrupt you, then it's going to be difficult. Find a private meeting room or a nearby cafe. Obviously, if you have a manager, get the all clear from them first. Now, if it's a nearby cafe, make sure it's not the one where everyone goes to in the morning at that time, because again, you're going to get interrupted. Schedule in the hour of power in your calendar so that it doesn't get booked by you or someone else. Make a note in your calendar what you're going to work on so that you don't waste time and energy figuring out what you're doing. Make sure you have a device to stop you from working at the end of the hour. For example, if you're working in a cafe from 7:45 to 8:45 and you have a meeting at 9 o'clock nearby, then that's the device because you need to get going to the meeting. This makes you work faster to get the tasks done. Very often, we're slow because of indecision or sitting there, not moving the task forward or just typing slower. We're trying to simulate when we are getting something done last minute. You know when we're rushing to get that task done because we left it too late? We're creating a similar scenario, except that ideally you're doing it well ahead of when it's needed. Also, if you complete the task in an enjoyable environment, maybe some good music, great coffee, then this can help. This specific environment can create a transitional object to help you get into the mode of the hour of power. I remember first hearing about transitional objects decades ago when reading Peter Senge's The Fifth Discipline, which is a well-known organizational behavior book. The same concept applies when you're working from home. Have a think about this. You should put on your specific work clothes, even if it's a tracksuit. Put on your work tracksuit pants, because if you don't have a specific spot, if you don't transition, your home life and work life blends into each other too much, and it's hard to get into work mode and it's hard to switch off. Now, the hour of power method itself is based on Parkinson's law, which is work expands to fill the time allocated, which actually was originally a satirical essay on bureaucracy. However, when teachers have experimented with this technique, they find that it works. So giving 2 sets of student groups a different amount of time for the same task results in those groups completing the task in the allotted time. For example, you give a 4-hour task to a group, is completed within 4 hours if that's what they're provided. Yet the same 4-hour task, if that's given to another group who is provided 8 hours, takes them 8 hours. You see this happening every day. I spoke earlier about meeting times taking the schedule length, with many meetings just not finishing earlier. So if you apply the hour of power effectively for 5 days a week, that's 5 hours of productive time when you're getting tasks done that might otherwise have been pushed forward. If we know that we schedule in tasks during the hour of power that we respect and utilize, so rather than lamenting over one task not getting done today, it's still there, we can forget about it because it's in the hour of power the next morning. I was once discussing this with a manager who was getting a report done in the evening whilst sitting with his family, sending it off at night. He hated it, but he felt he needed to complete it that day. I asked if anyone was actually reading it in the evening, and he said, probably not. So he worked out that it'd be much better if he just did it the next morning when it was fresh, so he could be with his family, and it made no difference to the recipients. Now, moving on from the hour of power, but staying on the first time management principle, that energy and what we enjoy drives what we spend time on, another technique you can use with this principle is to delegate it, do it, or dump it. But beware of boomerangs when delegating. You might be able to delegate it, but if this boomerang task is not delegated properly into the right person, it comes back to you. In fact, it comes back in a worse condition because when you handed it over, you thought someone was going to do something, and now you've lost time and it's back with no progress. As far as doing it, if you're not in deep work and you're just kind of walking around and someone gives you a task that takes 10 minutes and you have 10 minutes spare, perhaps before the next meeting, it may be worth just getting it done. So rather than writing it into the to-do list, because we're often unkind to our future self when we write it down for later, then our future self comes along and thinks, why didn't you just do this earlier? Now, just on that, the other thing that we do that's very unkind to our future self is that we take on tasks that we should never have taken on at all. So what happened in that situation is that it was easier to say yes than it was to negotiate or explain why it shouldn't sit with you. Again, it comes down to energy. The sloth was to say yes, but the frog was to push back a bit. And if you can build the skill in pushing back in a non-confrontational way, then that frog can start to look like a puppy. We'll cover how in another episode. One other thing that doesn't help us with gravitating towards what's easy is when we don't look after ourselves. This is not a health podcast, so I'm not going to talk about how. But when you're tired, you eat foods that make you sleepy, you're generally not as fit as you might be. When we're hungover, this can result in less energy overall, and then we can go towards sloths. And that's not to say that fit people are more disciplined with work tasks, because sometimes that's not the case. What I'm saying for each person compared to your own self, the healthier and more rested that we are, the better chance we have of working on the things that are more difficult. Another tool to give a task more energy is to create social accountability. We see this happen throughout many walks of life. For instance, personal trainers and other people whose job is to keep us accountable. If you schedule in a meeting with someone to present work, then you're more likely to get that work done because you know you'll feel better if you do it and you'll feel worse if you don't, because there's a risk to our social standing with that person. So if you schedule the meeting before you complete the task, then you schedule the task during your hour of power, lo and behold, you get it done. So when you step back, what this really comes down to is this. The problem leaders are facing isn't that they don't have enough time. It's that despite working hard and staying busy, they still feel like the most important things keep on slipping, and the day ends without real progress on what actually matters. The misunderstanding is the thinking that time itself is the thing to manage, as if better tools, tighter schedules, or more discipline alone can solve it. But everyone has the same number of hours. What differs is energy and how deliberately it's used. The better way of thinking is to recognize that time management is really energy management. When leaders understand which tasks are high value, which ones drain or generate energy, and when their best energy is available, they can start matching the right work to the right moments. That's how you move from reacting all day to actually being in control of it. When you manage energy deliberately, rather than letting it manage you, you don't just get more done, you work on the right things with less friction and far less tension for you and your team. Leadership doesn't grow by accident. It grows because you choose to work on it. Thanks for making the time today. I'm Tommy Sim, and this is Lead to Grow. If you found this episode helpful, feel free to share it with someone who might also get value from it. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video and subscribe to the channel to see future episodes. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can follow the show. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, a 5-star rating or short review really helps people discover it. New episodes come out regularly. Hope to see you again.